Do you know that there are different SDLC methodologies, and some of them have existed for more than 40 years? And we are starting from the oldest old fart, the Waterfall model. The first mentions of this model were in 1956 by Felix Lorenzo Torres and Herbert Bennington. I would bet that this methodology is older than all we are. And we need to learn this model with all respect in our hearts and money in our minds, because this model is used in very well-paid domains. This model reminds me Cheerful Charlie from the Clarkson's Farm, because this model is strict, nerdy, and loves order.
We haven't really done a budget, have we? I like budget.
Now on the screen you see the diagram of the waterfall methodology. You can see that the phases don't repeat and follow each other sequentially. And this model is sequential, remember this. From this picture you must remember the most important thing about the waterfall. Each phase of the project must be completed before the next phase begins. So you can't test before the development ends. So you can't develop before the requirements are set. Why? Because you can't!
The regulations and rules that we have to comply by.
Waterfall is a top-down process, meaning that the project is planned and managed from the higher level before the details are worked out. As you get, this model has its drawbacks. It is not flexible, so it can be difficult to make changes to the project once it has started. It can lead to communication problems between the different stages of the project. Here you probably have a question: who would ever use this model if it is not flexible? Nowadays everybody loves Agile. Waterfall is a perfect model for the project where requirements are stable and well defined, such as system with high safety requirements. Waterfall is often used for the system with high safety requirements, such as medical devices or nuclear power plants. This is because waterfall methodology ensures that all requirements are carefully considered and documented before the project begins. If not, we could blow up very quickly. Projects with a fixed budget or schedule. Waterfall can be a good choice for the project with a fixed budget or schedule, because you can't even fart if it was not planned or you don't have approval for it. And here are some domains in software development where waterfall is still used in 2023. Embedded systems. Embedded systems are the computer systems that are embedded in different devices, such as cars, appliances, and medical devices. These systems typically have well-defined requirements, fixed budgets, and a big pain in the ass in form of laws and standards that need to be followed. Government projects. Government projects often have high level of bureaucracy and red tape. Financial services. Financial services often have strict regulations that need to be followed. So here, you must think twice and learn waterfall methodology by heart, because this domain are fucking loaded, swimming in money. And I hope you also understand that we are not working for free here. vModel. vModel is a younger brother of Waterfall. It was developed in 1917 as its extension. This model is also sequential, and you already know what this means. You can't return to the previous phase if it is finished. But this model has a little difference. What do you think means we? This means validation and verification. Why? Firstly, let's look at the picture. Here we can see all phases of the V model. On the left side we can see the business analysis and system analysis. They correspond to the requirement analysis phase in the SDLC. Also, in V model and in waterfall model you haven't seen planning phase, because the planning phase is already included into the requirement analysis phase. Next, we see the architecture design and model design phases. They correspond to the design phase in the SDLC. Next, we see coding, aka the development phase. And the next 4 phases are testing phases and also testing levels. We will talk about them in the next video, so subscribe so you don't miss it. But where should be validation and verification here? The icing on the cake is that verification and validation is provided for each phase of the development process. In front of every phase, you can see the corresponding testing phase. During the component integration, system and acceptance testing phases, validation and verification activities are provided. Because obviously we test them. One more tricky moment here. From the first phase of V model, testers are working hard. Despite the testing starts only after coding, they could make their testing documentation during the development phases. Example, they could make a draft test cases and create an ideas on how to test system during the business requirement analysis phase. Where these models can be used? The domains, the same as Waterfall. It can be aerospace, manufacturing, defense, and so on. The minuses the same as Waterfalls. Iterative and incremental models. Next, we will talk about the models that look very similar, but actually they don't.
Cooper, and Cooper.
And their main principle is same. They use all SDLC phases for one or several features in one iteration. So they don't need all requirements to be ready. They only need small planned part. It also called iteration. But there is one nuance. The iterative model involves repeating the entire development process multiple times, with each iteration building on the previous one. And one more thing. The incremental model involves developing the software in a series of increments, each of which is a complete and working version of the software. Look at these Mona Lisa pictures. In the iterative model, we will see the end result only at the end of the project, because we increase our functionality step by step. This approach allows the feedback to be incorporated early and often. This can help to improve the quality of the software. In the incremental model, every iteration is independent, so we easily could release our product even if it is not finished. The domains for both of these models are the same: web or mobile development, games and software as service. Agile framework Scrum. This model reminds me of Jeremy Clarkson, because here we really can do whatever we want. One important thing: we can do everything that could help, not ruin.
What the fuck are you doing up here?
So the main Scrum characteristics are: this is incremental and iterative development. The software is developed in a series of iterations, each of which produces a working version of the software. The teams are self-organizing, meaning that they are responsible for planning and managing their own work. In Scrum is mandatory daily stand-ups. The team meets daily to discuss what they are doing and if they had any roadblocks. The work is broken into sprints, which are short period of times, typically from 1 to 4 weeks, during which team focuses on specific set of tasks. At the end of each sprint, team meets to reflect what went well and what could be improved. It's also called retrospective. Also here could be grooming and planning meetings. Scrum is used in many domains, so I'll tell you when it is better to use Scrum. Requirements are not well defined or are likely to change. The project is complex, because Scrum breaks down project into smaller, more manageable increments. This makes easier to manage the project and to identify and address the problems early on. The last model you must know is Kanban. This model reminds me Gerald from the Clarkson's farm, because he was constantly repairing the fence and didn't do any task he wasn't asked for. Also, Gerald doesn't have any time limits and continuously improves the process with his wisdom. Now on the screen you will see the Kanban board. There are 4 main principles in the Kanban model. Visualize the workflow. The Kanban board is a visual representation of the workflow. It typically consists of 3 columns: to do, in progress and done. The tasks are moved from the left to right as they progress through the workflow. Limit work in progress. Work in progress limits are set for each stage of the workflow, but the limits is set only for amount of tasks, not the time. This helps to prevent the team from taking on too much work and to ensure that the work is flowing smoothly. For example, a team might set a work-in-progress limit of 5 tasks in the in-progress column. This means that the team can only have 5 tasks in progress at any given time. Pull system. That means that the team work only on the tickets that are needed, rather than working on everything that is available. For example, the team must only start working on the ticket when it is approved by the product owner. Continuous improvement. This is done regularly by reviewing the Kanban board and making changes if it is needed. For example, the team might review the Kanban board every week and change the work-in-progress limit or workflow if it's needed. This model can be used in different domains. Mostly important, Kanban is used when we can't predict and plan the product. The last thing you need to know is the difference between Kanban and Scrum. This question you often can hear in the interview. Scrum is a sprint-based methodology, while Kanban is a continuous flow methodology. In Scrum, the work is broken into sprints, which are short periods of time. The team works on the features in the sprint and releases all these features in the end of the sprint. In Kanban, the work flows continuously through the system. There are no sprints, and team works on the features as soon as they are available and releases all these features only when they are done. That was stuff, and that's all for today. Now you're ready to discover test planning video.